Could you tell us a little bit about how you got involved in this project and what it entailed being the executive producer of the movie in addition to its star?
It was an odd situation. It was very organic. I was not the executive producer. I was hired to play this part, and Robert Mrazek was a congressman who wrote it, and he hired someone else who had never directed a film to help him co-direct. And it became very apparent during shooting that they needed some help from us, myself and Joe, the DP, and we helped them throughout the shooting. And then we realized that we didn't have what we needed, and we went back and shot another 5 days 6 months later. And at some point, my agent said, honestly, he said, I've never seen an actor so involved in a film and so involved in the making of a film. You should be one of the producers. And I said, fine. And it's been very helpful. I mean, it's been great because they didn't fight that. They were very welcoming and generous to allow me to become one of them. But it happened over a period of time.
And this was truly an independent production and shot in some very remote locations. What is that experience like, and what do you take on beyond just being an actor in the film when you're working under the conditions of being in an independent project like this?
Well, you become food service, you become a helper, you help move cameras, you help move equipment. If you're going to make an independent film, you have to give up any idea that you're going to be taken care of or someone's going to get your coffee. I think, but to me, that's the joy of it. It's really a group effort, and I kind of honor that way of making films, and that's what we did. We all got together, and when someone, what was great was when someone wasn't knowledgeable in a certain area, they were welcoming for others to come in and help them with that particular part of it. So there were no fights or battles about it. We just all sort of, helped each other. I mean, it's kind of like a war. We all just sort of, when somebody needed help, the others helped, uh, and when we needed to go back and shoot more, we all went back and carried equipment. And to me, that's kind of a wonderful way to make a film.
What do you think Bob Mrazek brought to this movie? How much of it is personal and about him embedded in this film, or is it really just a scripted film that he pulled together?
Well, Bob was very, very important. He actually helped with the bill. I don't know the name of the bill to protect films that directors had directed from being colorized and from being cut because certain scenes were not pleasurable for certain people. So he had the Library of Congress protect these films, and I honor that he did. He was chastised for not reciting the pledge, and I think that was the kind of the heart of this movie. Was he decided to build a film? He'd always wanted to make a film, and he built this film around that problem he had in Congress. He served for, I believe, 9 or 10 years. The thing that I really was honored about with him was that he wrote this script, and his dialogue was not something that I was particularly comfortable with, and he was very, very generous in letting me rewrite my scenes to make them more natural. And he's been very helpful and a wonderful partner in this.
And for you personally, was there anything from your experiences? You mentioned not only did you grow up here, you worked on the docks. So much of this movie
Sounds like
takes
Brando. I
place.
worked on the docks.
You worked on the docks
Stamford.
and on the waterfront. Did anything from your own childhood experiences growing up along the water here inform your relating to the character that you played in the movie?
Well, interestingly, I'd been trying for years to make a movie about a guy who kind of rediscovers his roots. I never loved growing up so much as I did in Rowayton, Connecticut, with the lobster traps, and I think we kind of took it for granted. And I had some friends visit me when I'd been on Martha's Vineyard with them, and we came back and I took them to my parents' house in Rowayton, and they're like, "Why are you going to Martha's Vineyard? This is nirvana where you live. This is extraordinary." And I think that I think all of us kind of, everybody wants to return to some kind of simplicity, and I love the idea that somebody who's been through been through Vietnam and had a rough time, and his marriage has fallen apart, kind of finds some peace in a place that's very simple and very beautiful. This island is called Monhegan Island. And Adam Schloss, my friend in Rowayton, would say, I went to this island this summer, and we had a house, and there was no electricity, and there were no cars on the island. And I thought, that is so cool. And it turns out that Adam's house is the fish house, the woman's house, where we come out of, where the boat explodes. That was her house. So there's sort of a full circle there with my friend from Rowayton.
Last question for you, and then we're going to take it out to the audience for questions. On the face of things, you play a congressman. It's called The Congressman. It would allude to it being a political film in some way, but I didn't necessarily read the movie that way, and I wanted to know, what was the movie about for you?
Well, to me, you know, as an actor, you always want to find a character that goes through something interesting and has, you know, kind of a change in his life. And if you described what's great about being an actor as having a character that has some kind of a confrontational moment that causes him to have to reevaluate things. And to me, this is a perfect film for an actor my age he's a complex guy. He's not perfect. And he finds some peace in his life, and in a very beautiful place that's very not unlike Stamford or Darien or Rowayton. So it was an honor to be a part of it.
We're going to come out to the audience now with questions. We have mic runners going through both aisles, so I would just like to ask if you could raise your hand. We'll try to get to each person and wait for the mic to come to you, and we'll take as many questions as we can this evening. And
before the questions come, I'd
yes.
like to say something. One of the reasons I'm here is that 40 years ago, more than 40 years ago, I started my career in musicals with a group of friends. And I'm so proud to still be close to them and that they're here tonight. And I'd like to introduce them. And one of them, Wayne Cilento, has become an extraordinary star on Broadway. He starred in A Chorus Line. He choreographed Tommy. He choreographed Wicked. And he's going to direct me in Man of La Mancha. And I would like to introduce my friends Bobby Rejo, Kathy Cilento. Oh, stand up, you. Betsy Owens, and Wayne Cilento. I know there are others I've worked with out here, but the best part of tonight, I know the movie's fun and I'm glad to be in it, but the fact that I'm back with my friends of 40 years and we've remained close is the best thing about this evening. Thank you. I forgot, Bernardo Carmine Spinelli is here.
Okay, I see some hands out here. I think we had somebody up in the front who was going to ask you a question.
Bernardo Carmine Spinelli, what is the question?
I skin you like a fish. Well, basically, you've already answered the question, but my question, I have two questions, actually. There's a lot of people in the audience that grew up in Stamford and grew up coming to this theater, actually, the Avon Theatre, when we were little punks. How does it feel to come back to Stamford, where it all began?
Well, as I said, it's like coming home. I said to these guys at dinner, I said, you know, the movie's great and it's really fun, but in life, the best thing on earth is that I'm still friends with these people after 40 years. We're still close. I don't know why. I don't like any of them at all. But we've all remained very close, and we don't talk for 10, 15, sometimes in Bobby Rejo's case, years and years. But we were connected in a way where my career started. I fell in love with movies in this theater, and also the other theaters. There was the Stamford Theater, and what was the other one?
Palace.
The Palace. Yeah. And my mom would take us, and then we would go to Bloomingdale's for lunch. I had a dentist here too. That was not so fun. But I think what's really most important is coming back to this place. The most important thing is I hope none of us forget that what happened tonight, watching a movie together in a big house with a bunch of strangers, is really an extraordinary experience. And I hope that never comes to an end. We all have flat screens. We all lie in bed and go, what are we going to watch on Netflix? I'm guilty of it too. But I think if we make the effort tonight is really an extraordinary thing that we could all come together and feel this thing together with a group of strangers. And I know Wayne and I are still doing theater, and that's very much an important part of our culture, and I hope we don't let that go.
Okay, Adam.
Second
Adam,
question.
I have a question for you as well.
Okay.
This was magnificent. It was wonderful to be here back in Stamford where it all began. What are some of the up-and-coming events that are going to happen?
Well, I'm not going to, the question was, what are the up-and-coming events that are going to happen? I'm not going to take away from tonight's Q&A.
He wouldn't mind at all.
And I'll just say that you can find more out about all of the upcoming events by visiting us on our website at
I'll tell you, I went out with him.
But
I went out with him and I said, I'm coming back next year with hair.
What do you think about that?
Party.
How about
We're
that?
going to have a party.
I see we have some rousing applause there. We're going to go to the, there's some hands right up over here, and I see somebody just got the mic. Yes.
In the middle of the film, you quote, "It's a Wonderful Life." And me, like many others, have always loved that ending where everything works out okay. But in the ending of your film, there was part of me that wanted you to stand up in front of Congress and get Congress to do everything that you believed in. But in fact, you walked away. And I think there is a time possibly to walk away, but in the dangerous times we're in now, I wonder if that's really what you advocate, or how do you make that choice of when you walk away and when you demand your voice in front of a large group of people?
That's a great question. I don't advocate anything. I was an actor in the movie. But I think the fact that the movie had you ask that question makes this evening worthwhile.
We're going to go over to this side now. We've got the mic up. There we go, in the center.
Hi.
Yes.
Good evening. Thanks. Congratulations on a wonderful performance. Very consistent and beautiful, and an incredible acting ensemble. Were any of the Mainers actual Mainers amateurs, or were they all professional actors?
We were all amateurs. No, no. The guys in the fish house were all fishermen on the island. There wasn't a professional actor among them.
Did you work with them, or did you just let them be?
I let them be until they got over the top, and then we tried to tone them down a little bit.
It was wonderful.
It's
Thank
amazing
you.
how, you have somebody who's very shy, like street theater, and you get them up, and they're like, they won't work, and all of a sudden you have to go, no, it's okay, it's too much. Calm down.
Moving toward the back on this side, the woman with the mic. Yes.
Hi, Treat. I want to say thank you. Thank you for being here. I want to digress with hair because this is not a question, but actually a thank you, because that movie changed my life. The movie came out when my beloved grandmother had passed, and we were taken to see that movie. And it gave me hope for being a dancer, and we sung every song and acted out every part for many, many years to come. And that is one of my top 5 movies, and I just want to say thank you, because that movie changed the course of my life. So thank you.
Well, thank you. And I have to tell you that when I was doing, when we were doing West Side Story, I had an 8-track tape of the play of Hair, and I was singing it in my car all the time, and it changed mine too. I had no idea that I'd eventually be in it 6 years later. So
We're going to switch back over to this side.
Speaking about the fishermen and how they went over the top in terms of...
No, they didn't. We stopped them. No, they didn't.
In terms of craft, was there a time when you were self-conscious about acting and had doubt, fear that you had to overcome? It looks so natural now. So I'm curious about any of the inner obstacles that you had to deal with to become such a great actor.
Oh, I still go through it. I mean, Jane, who played my wife, in the film, who I adore, Jane Atkinson, and I did Lion in Winter 3 years ago, and I thought I was going to throw up before the first performance, and I thought, why do I do this to myself? So I think we all are consistently, asking those questions, but then that passes, and then you get in front of an audience, and you're comfortable. I mean, when I first sang, Wayne and I are going to do Man of La Mancha next year, hopefully, and when I first sang it for Wayne, I was a basket case, and Wayne said, "Why don't you just take it, calm down, slow down?" So I think that's why you have directors. They allow you to be natural, and when you have a good director, like Sidney Lumet, Milos Forman, Woody Allen, I've had great directors. They help you to find that sweet spot, and that's why we have good directors to help us not take it too far.
We're going to take the question over here, and then we're going to move up to the front after that.
I am Jean Catalinato Denholtz, who did the musical direction for West Side Story, which Treat was in, I don't know how many years ago. And
300.
all of these kids up here were in the show, and it was extraordinary. Need I say how proud I am to see Treat and his wonderful, wonderful career and the legacy he is leaving us. I'm so proud to have been a part of him.
Joe, Jean's husband, who passed away, who was our, great leader, said nice things about all of us at the end of the shows. And I'll never forget, he said, and Treat Williams, with the easy walk and the delicious smile. And I thought, I'm just going to remember that for the rest of my life, because I'll try to remember that every time I go in front of a camera. But those two shows were the beginning of my career. And Jean, thank you. I love you. Thank you so much.
Got a gentleman right here in the front row who has a question.
Yeah, Hair was made a couple of years ago, but how have you changed as an actor from then to now?
Have you got a couple weeks? It's hard to, that's a difficult question to answer. I think, you just keep trying to find nuance. You try to find the truth. You try to find that part of yourself that's now 64 instead of 24 when I did the show. I don't think of changing so much as with my knowledge of and my experience in life, I can apply that to whatever role I do. That's a good question, and I'm not sure I can answer it other than I just keep trying to do my best.
Gentleman in the center over here with the mic, yes.
I also wanted to thank you for doing this, Treat. I think everybody here appreciates it.
No more than me. Seriously.
Preparing for this role as a congressman, I've worked with several politicians, and I was actually with Lieutenant Governor Jody Rell when 9/11 happened, and I got to see how she handled that situation at the time as best she could. And I'm curious because I found the scenes where you were doing congressional work behind the scenes pretty realistic, although in a more compressed time, but that's what movies do. But can you talk about how you prepared for the role, and was it just the way it was written, or what prep work did you do for it?
I didn't. To be honest with you, I believed that I was playing someone who could have been the head of a bank. He could have been a CEO of a company. He could have owned his own company. I didn't think of him as a congressman, but as someone who was unhappy in his life. It was kind of falling apart. He didn't understand. He was a Vietnam vet who probably didn't know that he was suffering PTSD. And that's, Hemingway once said that the best part of a short story is what you leave out. And I think what's left out of this story is the fact that this guy had never recovered from Vietnam. And I felt that what was important was the character, was that he had a job. He was unhappy with the job. It had destroyed his family, and he was lost. He was lost. And I don't think it was as important that he was a congressman, but that he was a guy who had been challenged for just being himself and needed to stand up for himself. And not unlike, Bob is really a big fan of the films of Frank Capra. And it's comparable to Mr. Deeds Goes to Town, where he gives up at the end of the film. And he has to be talked into defending himself. And I was very proud of that scene. I think that, and by the way, I wanted you to know that Ryan Merriman, my aide, who is a wonderful actor, played my 12-year-old son in Deep End of the Ocean, where Michelle Pfeiffer and I lost our son and got him back again. He was that 12-year-old boy. And I adore that man. I think he is a great actor and has yet to be discovered. He's a big Disney guy and all that, but he's one of those guys like Kurt Russell, who was a child actor, who kind of takes for granted how good he is. He's fabulous in this film. And I think those scenes I have with him are extraordinary. And I think that's really what the film is also about, is being thrown under the bus by someone you cared very much about. And when he comes to me and says, "Don't let what I did, ruin your career," it's a beautiful scene. That's my favorite scene in the film. So I don't think it was so much about Congress as about this guy.
We're going to take it all the way to the back of the auditorium. In the back row, we have a question. Yes.
Hi there. I was just curious if you can tell us anything about the fishing and the impacts of the legislation, if there is anything, what's happening with it now. I didn't happen to notice when you made this film, but can you tell us anything about that and whether we can do anything?
Well, I'm not knowledgeable about that, but I do think there was a strong message that this kind of fishing, the dragging of fishing, destroys the seabed. And we also know, I think all of us know, because I actually did a musical a couple years ago in New York about fishing off the Grand Banks, and all that fishing has completely been fished out, up and down from Maine all the way up to the tip of Canada. And I don't know how it's going to come back, but I do think that we need to protect those fishing grounds and let them grow back. And it's not just that. I mean, we all know that there's also a big issue with coral dying out. So it's something I think we all need. I'm not very educated about it, but I'm trying to be. But I do know that when you drag, what she said is true. To get 3 shrimp, you're dragging about 20 yards out of everything on the seabed, and I think that's a big problem that needs to be examined. And I think we should all I need to educate myself about it too.
We have another question right here. Yes.
This is more of a statement than a question. I think it was great foreshadowing that you were in hair, because you have amazing, amazing hair. That's it.
This is a wig.
We're going to take it back to the back corner there. I saw a few more hands raised. I think we're getting back there with the mic. Yes.
Treat? Yeah. I remember fishing down, and it used to be we could get flats all the time. And you can't catch a flat down there for your life anymore. I mean, we used to bring in hundreds of them, and we thought that it would never stop. It's horrible. It's just horrible, just horrible.
Well, again, I think the film opens up the conversation about that. I mean, I don't think there's any message. Somebody said if you want to send a message, they say, "What's your message?" And I say, well, if you want to send a message, send a text. That we don't have a message. We just, I think Robert Mrazek examines these issues, and we certainly aren't pounding any kind of an answer down anybody's throat. But I do think these are things that we should all be thinking about, particularly in this particular environment of the election.
We have time for 2 more questions, so let's make them good ones. Yes, over here.
Such a pressure on
I love putting pressure on my audience.
That the I'll call it cinematography. It was astonishing to see everything that was behind any actor in it. The beauty.
More interesting, I thought.
Incredible. Just wanted to tell you that's how it affected me.
Thank you.
We're going to take one more question. I have somebody all the way up here in the front, and we're going to come down to you with a microphone.
Thank you so much. I wanted to ask about several of the other movies that you've been in, things like where you've played someone like a captain in the military, or you played a police officer. One of my favorite movies, Sidney Lumet, Prince of the City. Working with directors on that scale, how did that experience enable you to help Mrazek bring this movie and other sort of independent movies to fruition?
I planted her there with that final question.
That's a very, very good question. Sidney was my mentor in how to make a film. Unfortunately, I've never made one like that again. But I will tell you what we did, and this is the way to make a movie, if you all make one ever. We had a script. We went to a big hall. We taped out the chairs, tables. We had folding chairs and tables, and we acted out all the scenes from the movie until Sidney said he thought they're where he wanted them to be. And when he thought they were where he wanted them to be, he would say, "That's a print." And that meant, "That's where I want this to be when you guys get on set." 3 weeks we rehearsed, and then for 4 days we did run-throughs of the movie like a play. I'd never done it since, and I think it's the way every movie should be rehearsed and made, but some directors just don't work that way. But he was my mentor in how to make a film, and it was very, very helpful. What he taught me was, he was known for doing only 1 or 2 takes, and actors hated him for it, but I thought, why do more than 1 take? If you're prepared and everybody's ready to go and you got your motor running and you know where he wants you to go and you get up and you do it the way he wants, why do more? And I felt that way ever since. I think that preparation and professionalism of his sort are the way to make a movie.
And on that note, Treat, I just want to thank you for bringing it full circle and coming back down to Stamford to the Avon tonight.
We're going to do one a year. We're going to do
Everybody
hair
ready
next
for
year.
hair next year? We're going to see you all again for that. Thank you, folks. Good night.